Fucking hell. There we go. That's better. Oh, God. That's better. There we go. Right. Hello. Oh, thank you, Jem. Thank you, thank you. I could do with the views. So much appreciated. Stream manager. Oh, 2 people. 502. I'm over 500 followers now. Ha ha ha. Let us bring up the YouTube and my dashboard here. Then we'll get on to a couple of constituency profiles. What the frickin' hell? Oh! Jackson Backup followed me. Thank you, Jackson Backup. Much appreciated for the follow. Hello, Scribby. Twitch dashboard, please. Oh, no. Yes, I know I'm live. Ta-da! Bring it. Fantastic. YouTube. Helena's still alive. Wow. My channel. My channel, thank you. Haha, here we go. Still alive. Wow. Good. So I don't get confused by hearing my voice doubled up. Right. Here we go. Look at pretty Parliament. Do. East Kilbride, East Lothian Coast and Lammermuirs. Fucking hell. I'm not even halfway through them. I need to do a good few of them tonight, methinks. Oh. Refreshment. North Berwick, not Berwick-upon-Tweed. Huh. What's the title? Race to win in East Lothian Coast and Lammermuirs too close to call. A few of them are too close to call, apparently. Including my own one here, which is weird because the SNP polling here has been brilliant. Apparently we might go back Labour. Just end me. Haha. In spite of its new name, East Lothian Coast and Lammermuirs can be accurately described as simply the old East Lothian constituency, with the town of Tranent excised. Oh, have they taken Tranent out of that constituency? Well, but that alteration is fortuitous for the SNP. Cool. Because East Lothian was the tightest SNP Labour marginal in the country 5 years ago. And it just so happened that Tranent was one of the parts of the constituency where the core Labour vote was to be found. Also, they've excised the Labour vote for those old boundaries. You win some, you lose some with these boundary changes. Like, because we've been, where I am, we've been grouped in with, so it's Easterhouse and Springburn. Easterhouse votes more Labour. Here in Springburn and the other parts of this area around here, up near Springburn Park, very heavy SNP vote. So extending it out to the East End is giving hope to Annas. Yeah. Rejoice, comrades, Davinia Robbins. Hello, my dear. In the local government ward containing Tranent, Labour outpolled the SNP by 13 points, fuck, in the 2022 council elections and by 17 points in 2017. Yeah, I can see that Helena was still streaming. She did start a bit late. So she's been going for about 2 hours now, hasn't she? It's estimated that if the 2021 election had taken place under the new boundaries, the removal of Tranent would have boosted the SNP's winning margin over Labour in the constituency from 2.5 to 3.7. That's not a huge difference at all. Yeah, but it's potentially enough to swing the balance if the result this May is once again very tight. And the indications are that it may well be. Yeah. Labour now require something close to a 2% swing from the SNP to gain the seat, and most recent Scotland-wide polls show them exceeding that on national trends, albeit not by much. It's about 3.5, maybe 4 points. 3, I think. 3 points. But in some of the other seats, they'd need a swing of like 6, or 15 in the constituency itself. Some of them are even 25-point swings they'd need. Get right. That puts the constituency on course to be the only SNP held seat in the country that is taken by Labour. Oh, I feel you. I feel for you there. I know what I go through. Mind you, in saying that, I get by on like 4 or 5 hours. It's difficult to fall asleep when you're always in pain or agony. Not much I can do about that. That puts the constituency on course to be the only SNP held seat in the country that is taken by Labour. There's no point in thinking only one isn't too bad, because SNP leader John Swinney's ambitions of winning a Holyrood overall majority might well not be able to withstand even one loss. Is your arm sore? Oh. If I could, I'd chuck this through the screen for you, ibuprofen gel. That's what I use, because the spray ones that you've got, that you can buy, they're for muscle pain and muscle issues, not for the bone. That can help with the joint itself, the ibuprofen. So try and go and see if you can get an ibuprofen gel in the morning. It's a constant low ache. Fucking hell. Luckily for him, however, the new Scottish poll from Lord Ashcroft offers fresh hope. Oh, it's done another one. And usually implies a national swing from Labour to SNP on a constituency ballot, if only an extremely tiny one. That means the SNP would narrowly hold East Lothian and Lammermuirs, as long as the swing was reasonably uniform, thus keeping Swinney's majority of hopes alive. Good. More than a decade ago, an Italian psephologist with a fascination for British politics was tickled by what he regarded as an obviously daft and people-pleasing comment from the former Scottish Labour leader Ian Gray. God, there's a blast from the past. Who represented East Lothian. I remember Ian Gray, fucking hell. Gray had claimed his constituency was the most beautiful in Scotland. Oh dear God. Oh darling. Gray had claimed his constituency was the most beautiful in Scotland. I don't know. Is it your elbow? Right. But while that boast might look severely questionable if a direct comparison is made with Highland constituencies, few people who have spent time on the East Lothian coast, or indeed the Lammermuir Hills, would dispute that it is a special environment. The Lammermuir Hills are quite lovely. Ray Joyce comrades, Bry, your guy. Hi Bry, welcome in. Right, as is the case in a number of parts of Scotland, the beauty of the constituency has had a massive indirect influence on its politics, because the number of wealthy people who have been drawn to live there. Yeah. Howdy indeed. Hello. The other side of the equation is that locals have been priced out of towns such as North Berwick, where housing is exceptionally costly and many buildings lie idle as second homes. Random. No second homes. In 3 of the 4 wards that lie wholly within the constituency, the proportion of residents who were born in England is 14% or higher, and is as high as 19% in North Berwick Coastal, North Berwick Coastal Ward polling demonstrate that those people are significantly less likely to vote SNP or to support independents are significantly more likely to vote Tory. North Berwick is Scotland. So this is just south of Edinburgh, essentially. To a lesser extent, the same pattern probably holds true for affluent voters who have moved to the constituency from other parts of Scotland. It is therefore not surprising that on the 2021 regional list ballot, the Conservatives were actually in second place in East Lothian and Labour were only in third. That strongly implies Labour only got so close to the SNP on the constituency ballot because the Tory supporters casting a tactical vote. There we go, tactical voting yet again pisses me off. Not to be confused with Berwick upon Tweed, yes. That's English, but they play in Scottish League. Rather odd. It did used to be Scotland at one point. Because the border kept on flipping. It was Scotland. Odd. Hello, Paul McClellan. Much will depend then on whether the unpopularity of Keir Starmer government will make Labour less attractive this year as a repository for tactical votes. Dislike of the SNP has often trumped all other considerations for unionist voters in the past. But in contrast to what happened in Dumbarton 5 years ago, the tactical anti-SNP push in East Lothian did not succeed in 2021. And that may put doubts in a few minds as to whether a tactical vote can actually produce results amid Starmer's woes. This race is simply too close to call, and the incumbent SNP of Paul McClellan, pictured here, will doubtless be hoping that as many SNP activists and volunteers as possible flood the constituency in the weeks to come. Sweet. Oh. Eastwood. Oh, frick. Rejoice, comrades. Look at it. Jackson Carlaw. He's a Tory. Could 2026 be first time the SNP wins this Scottish constituency? Maybe. Former Scottish Tory leader Jackson Carlaw won the Eastwood seat in the past two Holyrood elections, so that's 2021 and 2016. The East Devonshire seat of Eastwood is absolutely nowhere near Balmoral Castle. Correct. Big Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Welcome in. Yeah, it's nowhere fucking... Balmoral's up in Aberdeenshire, for fuck's sake. But it almost looks like an urban, or partially urban, equivalent of the Aberdeenshire West seat, in the Pacific sense that it's hard to see how the boundaries could have drawn any more perfectly for the Tories. A ring is drawn around a number of southern suburbs of Greater Glasgow conurbation, such as Newton Mearns, Clarkston and Giffnock. So they're all rather posh and lots middle class and upper middle class people live there. So the safe Tory essentially. But it'd be fun if the SNP actually take Eastwood. It really would be. Okay, a ring is drawn around a number of southern suburbs of the Greater Glasgow conurbation, such as Newton Mearns, Clarkston and Giffnock, that contain almost unbroken swaths of affluence. Posh bastards, essentially. Even where the constituency stretches out beyond the urban zone, it takes in the wealthy Waterford and the conservation village of Eaglesham. while very definitely excluding the lower income section of the council area. So cynically drawn borders, fucking hell. Okay, average house prices in the constituency are sky high. Life expectancy figures are enviable, and 12% of adult residents in managerial or director occupation stands out as one of the highest proportions in Scotland. So we're talking directors of things, upper management essentially. Great. During the recent boundary review, a proposal was made to try and break up this Tory-friendly oasis. Given that Clarkston and Thornliebank would have been amalgamated into a new constituency containing low-income parts of Glasgow proper, such as Carnwardrack. Carnwardrack's very deprived, it's kind of poor, just like this part of Glasgow. There would have been almost no chance of the incumbent MSP, Jackson Carlaw, successfully defending such a seat, because the poors don't vote for Tory. The poors hate Tories usually. So it's understandable that the former Scottish Tory leader launched an impassioned Save Eastwood campaign. He eventually got his way, and his current constituency survives completely unaltered, one of the few. Most of them have been tweaked around the edges, and some of them have been completely transformed. This one right here. It bears no resemblance to the seat that it once was. The curious thing is, though, that even with the ideal boundaries and ideal demographics, the Tories are still far from guaranteed to retain their sole enclave in West Central Scotland. Yes. He's currently in crisis at the minute. Could Russell Finley's Tories lose a seat that looks drawn for them? Look at he looks sad in that picture, doesn't he? Oh, poor Russell. He's in danger of losing his seat as well. Ha ha ha. Eastwood was actually a Labour-held seat for the first 17 years of devolution, from 1999 to 2016. While in the two most recent Holyrood elections, the SNP were close behind the Tories and Jackson Carlaw. A mere 2.6% swing in May would win the seat for the SNP, who also have the advantage of having Kirsten Oswald as their candidate. She is just as well known locally as Carlaw due to her 2 spells as MP for the overlapping Westminster constituency of East Renfrewshire. Yeah. The results from the 2016 EU referendum are perhaps the strongest clue to the underlying reasons for the Tories' vulnerability in Eastwood. Nearly 3/4 of adults in East Renfrewshire voted to remain as part of the EU, which is vastly higher not only in the Britain-wide figure of 48%, but also even the Scotland-wide figure of 62%. Eastwood is therefore unrecognisably different from Tory voting areas in the rural north east and south of Scotland, where support for Brexit was above the Scottish average. Yeah. To the extent that Carlaw's constituency is genuinely Tory territory, it's Liberal Tory, in tune to some extent with Ruth Davidson brand. Ruth the Muth. But not with Boris Johnson's anti-European populism. Paul Masterson, who was briefly the Westminster Tory MP for East Renfrewshire a few years ago, faced a near impossible task in trying to defend his seat in December 2019. At the precise moment Johnson was vowing to get Brexit done. Good. Carlaw's victory in the Holyrood seat only 18 months earlier only 18 months later, with an increased vote share, suggests that the Brexit issue had dropped in salience by then. Yeah. But even 5 years further on, it remains important in one vital respect. It makes Eastwood's Tory voters far less likely to defect to Reform UK than their counterparts in many other constituencies. Yeah. If anything, Carlow may be forced to compete with Oswald on the question of which of them will prove to be the most effective bulwark against Reform's destructive ideology. And it may be easier for Oswald to make that pitch authentically. With the constituency too closely matched, leading parties both expected to suffer a significant national drop in vote share in May, the outcome could scarcely be more unpredictable. But even the remotest sniff of a potential constituency gain is gold dust for the SNP. Getting Eastwood from them would be fucking awesome. The voters of Eastwood can expect to find that they will not be neglected in the weeks to come. Yeah, the campaign in some of these constituencies has been mental. Back momentarily, comrades. Haha! Sorry about that. Went and got myself some toast because I'm feeling a bit peckish. I do apologise for it. I am back. Do not worry. There we go. You can go there. You can go to my knee. There we go. Okay. Edinburgh Central seat explained amid threat to Angus. Hello, Angus Robertson. There was a constituency called Edinburgh Central before this Holyrood election, and there'll be one afterwards, but the two bear only a moderate resemblance to each other. Thank you, Diane. The new version of the seat will not contain around 1/3 of the geographical area of the old one, or well over 1/4 of its residents. The losses occur in the north and west of the old constituency. Affected locations include Cumleybank, Roseburn and Murrayfield. Posh areas. The compensatory gains of the territory in the south are much smaller in terms of the area, but are more equal in terms of people because they include densely populated parts of Morningside local government ward. Angus Robertson's landmark 2021 victory for the SNP in the old Edinburgh Central, which had previously been held by former Scottish Tory leader Ruth Davidson. Hi Ruth! Was essentially the reason for the SNP ending up with a net gain of one seat from their haul of 63 in 2016. Oh, holy fuck. That is a lot for one person. It wasn't their only constituency gain across the country, but crucially it counted as a real gain even after the Lothian list seats were taken into account. However, the detailed arithmetic of Robertson's win, which saw him push the Conservatives into second place by just over 11 points, nice one, are now largely irrelevant due to the extensiveness of the boundary revision. Fucking hell. It's vital for all parties to be able to judge roughly what the 2021 result might have looked like within the new constituency, and that is no easy task for several reasons. Yeah. Estimates suggest that the boundary change would have been sufficient for Labour to comfortably replace the Tories in second place and to have very slightly reduced Robertson's margin of victory. But straight away that raises huge question marks because the new voters are mostly coming in from affluent parts of old Edinburgh Southern constituency, where it's known that supporters of various unionist parties tend to vote tactically for Labour to keep the SNP out. Need a toast. Lovely toast. There we go. It's highly doubtful whether all those people would have behaved identically if transferred to a seat being defended by the Tories. Some of them might have cast a tactical vote for the Tories instead, while others might have referred to the genuine first choice party. Past local council elections in Morningside can't fully solve the mystery of how many of these people are true Labour supporters, partly because not all of the ward has been moved into Edinburgh Central, and partly because the available evidence is contradictory. In 2022, Labour outpolled the Tories in the ward by around 6 points, while in 2017 the Tories topped the first preference vote by around 10. That sounds like tactical voting to me, just to keep the SNP out. Another crucial point of confusion, or at least of ambiguity, relates to the strength of the Greens in the new version of the seat. The notional estimates from 2021 suggest they would have been a distant fourth with less than 7% of the vote, although that's bound to be a slight underestimate, because 1/4 of the voters who have been moved from Edinburgh Southern did not even have a Green candidate to vote for 5 years ago. Correct. Nom nom nom. God, got a flag. Yes, butter. I need the dairy. There's a jar of raspberry jam in the cupboard as well. What was that? I heard a noise. Give me a minute. Give me a flick. Nicked my iron brown leg out of my hand. Oh, black cunt. I'm a raspberry or a strawberry jam girl. Some prediction websites have used the impossibility of accurately calculating the Green vote share on the constituency ballot as an excuse to rely on the 2021 list vote instead, where the Greens did stand across the board and performed far better. Do you love blackcurrant? I like it, but I'm absolutely obsessed with raspberries. This has even resulted in startling projections that the former Green co-leader Lorna is on course to win Edinburgh Central outright. But that amounts to no more than a smoke and mirrors exercise, because the reasons for people voting differently on the constituency and list ballots tend to persist from one election to the next. If it didn't work that way, the SNP would for example currently be on course to win Shetland. A few people believe for that, and few people believe that for one moment. The Northern Isles are mostly safe Lib Dems. They usually vote for them. If we were to take any of the, if the SNP were to take any of the ones in the Northern Isles, or just the north of the country, yeah, the jaw-dropping result. Hello, Lorna. Nom 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 nom. I'll just finish this bit of toast. I've got another bit sitting there. I'll get that in a minute. Nom nom. Go there. In the old Edinburgh Central seat, the Greens never achieved more than 14% of the constituency vote, and in 2021 their support actually dipped to 9 points. Ouch. Even taking into account that many of the constituency's new voters will be students who live in a zone where the Greens have performed well in local elections, there is no doubt that Slater is starting from a distant 4th place and will need to overcome a deficit of close to 30 points to get rid of Angus. Tall order. That isn't mission impossible, because Patrick Harvey has demonstrated in the soon-to-be abolished Glasgow Kelvin seat that it's conceivable with a focused campaign to make big progress on the task of converting Green list votes into constituency votes. But it's important to stress that if Slater does become MSP for Edinburgh Central, she will be defying the odds rather than simply meeting expectations. Indeed, Robertson may not even be sure at this stage whether the main threat to the SNP comes from the Greens or from Labour. Setting aside the possibility that the estimated 2021 result may overstate Labour support, a 5.5 point net swing would see the seat fall to Labour. The recent Scotland-wide poll from Ipsos suggested the swing may not be far short of that, although other polling firms disagree. Robertson remains the favourite, but he will be looking over his shoulder in two very different directions. Holy fuck, this one's going to be mental. Bloody hell, redrawn Edinburgh constituency likely battlefield for SNP and Labour. Fucking hell. Okay. One of the surprising quirks of the constituency set up in the capital is that being replaced at this election is that the King has until effectively been a constituent of Edinburgh Eastern MSP Ash Regan for 1 week every summer. I recognise that name. Why do I recognise that name? Oh my god, yeah. Fuck. Wow. Thank you, Divinia. Although her seat didn't quite stretch as far as the Scottish Parliament building in Holyrood, it did take in the monarch's official residence of Holyrood Palace just over the road. That will no longer be the case after 7th of May, not only because Regan is standing solely on the regional list this time, but also because the constituency... I thought she was leaving. She was Alba. She left SNP and joined Alba. That's all enough said, really. Hang on. That will no longer be the case after the 7th of May, not only because Regan is standing solely on the list this time, but also because the constituency itself, as its new name of Edinburgh Eastern, Musselburgh and Tranent implies, is making a dramatic leap to the east. A slim majority of its population will henceforth not even be located in the City of Edinburgh Council area. That means Reagan's big 23-point victory over Labour in the old version of the seat in 2021, achieved when she was still a member of the SNP, is not remotely useful as a baseline for this year's race. The good news for the SNP is that the vast majority of the new territory comes from two other constituencies which are both SNP held in 2021. The bad news is that one of those constituencies is East Lothian, in which the SNP recorded by far the smallest margin of victory over Labour anywhere in the country. Worse still is the fact that the area being transferred from East Lothian is mostly comprised of the town of Tranent, which appears to have made an important contribution to Labour's competitiveness in the seat. He was a Live Aid presenter as well. Nice one. At the most recent local elections in 2022, Labour outpolled the SNP in Tranent, Wallyford and McMurray ward by almost 13 percentage points. However, the considerable chunk of Old Midlothian North and Musselburgh constituency that is moving into the new seat is mostly centred on the Musselburgh local government ward, which is much more favourable for the SNP. They were a little over 3 points ahead of Labour there in 2022 and had also previously topped the poll in 2017. Better still for the SNP is the section of Edinburgh City which is remaining in the constituency, because that is made up of Portobello and Craigmillar, fucking hell, ward, where a certain Kate Campbell was the lead SNP candidate in 2022 council elections. Omaha, hello. She guided her party to a heartening 13-point win over Labour in the ward and has now been selected as the SNP's candidate for the Holyrood seat. Hello, Omaha. Welcome in. Great to see you. The most fundamental truth about Eastern Edinburgh constituencies for both Westminster and Holyrood over the years, which have sometimes incorporated Musselburgh and sometimes haven't, is that although they are always a mixed bag socioeconomically and contain prosperous zones, the presence of lower income areas like Craigmillar generally tips the balance and ensures a left-leaning electorate. Yeah. At Westminster, the east of the capital was consistently represented by Labour from 1935 until SNP's post-Indy-Ref landslide in 2015. That was quite, that I liked when that happened. So after we voted to remain, because a lot of people in the 60s, right. Right. At Westminster, the east of the capital was consistently represented by Labour, just like loads of other places, from 1935 until SNP's post-Indy-Ref landslide in 2015. We wanted Devo Max. The Smith Commission said we should have blah 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 and blah, and we've only got half of blah. They still haven't done that. There was meant to be Oh, 67. That's kind of young. The only occasion in the Tories The only occasion the Tories truly came within range of taking the seat was 1959, so a while ago. In Holyrood terms, the Tories' local weakness was laid bare by them remaining a distant third in Edinburgh Eastern, even in Ruth Davidson's surge of 2016. So unless Reform can gain huge traction with their anti-immigrant messaging in a more impoverished parts of the constituency, the likelihood is that the contest in May will boil down to SNP Labour again. Fucking hell, there's loads of that happening across the country at the minute. Basically straight up battles between the SNP and Labour. Here in this seat, oddly enough as well. Estimates suggest that even taking into account the SNP's potential problem area around Tranent and Wallingford, the SNP would have defeated Labour in the new constituency in 2021 by a solid margin of 14 points. That still makes it one of the more vulnerable seats in the Central Belt, because Labour could gain it on a uniform swing by merely getting to within 12 points of the SNP nationally. However, all recent polls have shown a somewhat bigger SNP advantage than that. There's certainly no room for complacency, but for the moment, the most likely outcome appears that Campbell will be elected as SNP's new MSP for this radically redrawn constituency by a modest margin. Well, I live I'm doubtful. I'm 21 years away from my pension. It's 68 for me. Nah. I'd be gubbed. Oh. 67. That's the same for him. Oh. Crumbs. I was talking to Mum earlier on, and she was asking me, what is your retirement age anyway? When will I get my state pension? Well, I'm fucked. 21 years away, it's 68 for me. It's the same for the girls, by the way. So my younger sister's at 68 for them. Can I imagine my younger sister working as a nurse until she's 68? She's going to have to, I think. Poor dear. Massive surprise if SNP don't win Edinburgh North Eastern and Leith. Is that you, Dan McLeith? I think that might be Dan's. Ben McPherson at Bute House in Edinburgh. So that's basically the Scottish version of number 10. Bute House. The SNP's good run of parliamentary wins in the north of Edinburgh and Leith finally came to an end at the 2024 general election when Deirdre Brock lost her Westminster seat to Labour. But until that point, the SNP had been defying political gravity in quite a remarkable way. I'm screwed. I was born in 79. Rachel, fucking listen to me. Don't fuck around with the pension age. Do not change it. Because if she puts it up to 69 or 70, I'm fucked. Having to wait to 70 to get my pension. So hopefully she will not do that, because it'll be a quick and easy way to lose lots of Gen Xers, including myself. They might shift to go, yeah, surely they won't be that daft, would they? Because that's the ones that are voting for them now, that and the boomers. Well, the boomers are mostly voting for reform, I think. So, targeting Gen Xers and older millennials, changing the pension age, that's, yeah. Go ahead, Rachel, see what happens. You will lose millions of votes. Well, if people come out. But until that point, the SNP had been defying political gravity in quite a remarkable way. It's known that in most of the country, their support generally correlates closely with the pro-independence vote, and at the 2014 referendum, the Westminster constituency of Edinburgh North and Leith actually voted against independence by a heavy margin of 60 to 40, well above the national average. Yeah, they shifted it. They put on, that was, you blame the Tories. Hang on, was that the coalition, or was that the Tories on their own? Fuck, I can't remember. Was it the Tories on their own that done that? Might have been the coalition. Super Hubby would know. It sounds like something the coalition government would have done. As Ben Macpherson prepares to attempt to defend the Holyrood equivalent of that seat for the SNP, it might therefore be seen as no bad thing for him that the boundary review has shunted the constituency significantly eastwards, necessitating the name change to Edinburgh North Eastern and Leith. Roughly 1/3 of the population of the new version of the constituency have been transferred from Edinburgh Eastern. So they passed it in the 90s, so that was major, and enforced it in the, so the coalition government. Fuck. Okay, roughly 1/3 of the population of the new version of the constituency has been transferred from Edinburgh Eastern, and much of the new territory also overlaps with the old Westminster seat of Edinburgh East, which is the only part of the city that produced a yes vote share in 2014 in excess of the national average of 45%. Nom, 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 nom. Nom, nom. Yummy. Refreshment. Boom. Num. Okay. As ever though, the devil is in the detail. Correct. And some of the individual suburbs that have been introduced into the constituency, for example, the leafy Willow Brae and the historic conservation village of Duddingston. Cool. Enjoy your dog walk. I hope Doggo enjoys. And the historic conservation village of Duddingston do not look like obvious hotbeds of support for independence. What may work in the SNP's favour is that 72% of the population of Craigentinny and Duddingston local government ward, which is now fully part of the new seat, were born in Scotland, and only 10% were born in England. Oh, pretty. That offsets some of a disadvantage the party faces elsewhere in the constituency, and indeed one that is generic to much of Edinburgh. Yeah. Which is that the economic and cultural pool of the capital has created complex electorates in which Scottish national identity is weaker. No. Oh. In the Leith Walk ward, part of which is remaining within the constituency and part of which is being removed, just over half of its residents were born outside Scotland, and a mere 41% self-report having an exclusively Scottish national identity. I'm Scottish. But legally British. No. A figure that is far below the national average, as many as 17% of the ward's residents were born in England, and it is known that English-born voters in particular are disproportionately less likely to vote SNP or to favour independence. It's unsurprising then that the SNP have fared a touch better in local elections in Craigentinny and Duddingston than they have in Leith Walk or than in Inverleith Walk or Inverleith ward, which has been completely removed from the constituency. In 2022, two SNP candidates in Craigentinny and Duddingston took a very healthy 37% of the vote, putting them 16 points clear of Labour, who were in second place. Were the second most popular party. By contrast, in Inverleith, the SNP took only 20% of the vote and were left trailing the first... Oh, Lib Dems by... Oh, God. Lib Dems took it. Okay. Estimates of how the 2021 result would have looked in Edinburgh, North Eastern and Leith confirm that the boundary revision has worked in SNP's favour. Macpherson would have just taken over 50% of the vote compared to 47.9% he actually took in the old seat of Edinburgh Northern and Leith. His margin of victory over Labour would also have improved a smidgen, around 25.5 points. Not bad. That essentially means Labour would have to draw level with the SNP nationwide to gain the seat on a uniform swing in 16 days. Ha ha ha. Which looks extraordinarily unlikely. Oh God, did I put it in my pocket? Oh, I did indeed. It's in my pocket. Aha! Good. Any possibility of reform running the SNP close should be precluded by the fact that Edinburgh North and Leith was the 7th most pro-European constituency in the entire country, with only 22% voting Leave. Ha! At least that's out of reform's grasp, I guess. That's a good thing. Ah! Damn it. Go there. Come back here. Oops. The equivalent figure in Edinburgh East was just 28%. That leaves the Greens as the only realistic wildcard due to their reasonably good vote shares on the list in past Holyrood elections. A realistic goal for the Greens' new candidate, the feminist campaigner and author Kate Nevins, yay, may be to build on the result and perhaps pip Labour for second place. I like. Oh, Edinburgh North West. SNP will have eyes on list in Edinburgh North Western. Hello, Alex Cole-Hamilton. Scottish Lib Dem leader, everyone. It might be diplomatically suggested that opinions differ on whether the Scottish Lib Dem leader, Alex Cole-Hamilton, pictured above, has ever done anything that would warrant the record of the largest personal mandate in the history of devolution, but nevertheless that was achieved when that was what he achieved with his 25,578 votes in the old Edinburgh Western seat in 2021. From the SNP's point of view, it was perhaps the most disheartening result of that year's Holyrood elections anywhere in the country. Because they had actually previously won the constituency outright in 2011. And even when they lost it in 2016, the defeat was narrow. They had also briefly held the equivalent Westminster seat of Edinburgh West between 2015 and 2017, thanks to Nicola Sturgeon's post-Indie Ref landslide. It would have been reasonable to assume that this was territory that might return to the SNP fold in any year which saw the party perform exceptionally strongly nationwide. Indeed, 2021 was precisely such a year, with a record national SNP vote share of 48%. Cool. That may never be beaten in our lifetimes, yet Alex Cole-Hamilton's local 55% vote came down like a sledgehammer, seemingly putting the constituency totally beyond the reach both in good years and in bad. A close look at the 2021 results suggests the SNP were not significantly underperforming though. Their own 33.5% vote in the seat was only a couple of percentage points shy of their winning performance from 2011. All that had really changed in the intervening decade was that a lot of Tory support had either twigged for the first time that voting Lib Dem was an effective way of stopping the SNP, or had started to feel motivated enough to take up that option for the first time. God, I hate tactical voting so much. In the years prior to devolution, Western Edinburgh had in Westminster terms been classic Tory Lib Dem battleground, with an affluent but somewhat liberal electorate that was conflicted about whether it wanted to keep up the long tradition of sending Tories to London, but that had little interest in toying with Labour or the SNP. Many supporters of the latter two parties therefore tended to get behind the Lib Dems as the progressive option that would push the Tories out of power and help deliver a Scottish Parliament. Nowadays, the situation could scarcely be more different, with many Tory supporters feeling they can get the main thing they want by voting for their former mortal enemies. Some of the traditional Liberals are now in the SNP camp, but the Lib Dems have still found that what remains of their core support, in combination with unionist tactical votes from Tory and Labour supporters, amounts to practically unbeatable electoral coalition. Some of the more thoughtful Lib Dem activists might wonder in their darker moments what would happen if the constitutional issue ceased to have its current effects and everyone stopped voting tactically. Don't think that's going to happen. Because the 2021 result on the regional list ballot demonstrated that Edinburgh Western did not have a natural Lib Dem majority. In fact, the SNP topped the poll on the list by more than 5 points. But for the time being, the SNP do have to deal with the ongoing problem of anti-independence local electorate that will seemingly do whatever it takes to freeze them out. Their best hope might have been that the boundary revision would prove radical enough that it would split up the Lib Dem core vote and leave unionist voters unsure about the most promising tactical strategy. That hasn't really materialised, notwithstanding the change of the name to Edinburgh North Western. The constituency remains easily identifiable as the successor to Cole Hamilton's current seat. A full five-sixths of the population have been brought in from the old Edinburgh Western. A loss of territory in the Inverleith local government ward might be viewed as a mild setback for Alex Cole Hamilton because the Lib Dems were comfortably the top party there at the 2022 local elections. However, estimates suggest that if the 2021 Holyrood election had taken place within the new boundaries, Alex Cole Hamilton's vote would only have been reduced to 49%, and his winning margin of the SNP would only have been scaled back to 16 points. Even that may be Even that may be an underestimate of Lib Dem's true strength, because it doesn't take account of the possibility that some unionist voters who would have been newly added to the seat might immediately start voting tactically for Cole Hamilton, quite possibly. Because Edinburgh Western was nominally a target seat for the SNP in 2021, Cole Hamilton's victory felt at the time like a contributory factor to their narrow failure to win overall majority. It's unlikely they will even be thinking along those lines on this occasion, because Edinburgh North Western no longer looks like a marginal seat, and a Lib Dem hold seems highly likely. The SNP's new candidate and group leader in East Lothian Council, Lynn Jardine, and realistically her task may be to reduce the Lib Dem majority as much as she can to help shore up the SNP vote in the Edinburgh and Lothians East regional list. God, my throat is killing me. Oh God. If they'd equalised pensions at 60 instead of 65, it'd be less than 3 years of retirement, yeah. 68 for me. I might be screwed. Yeah, let's go on to let's see. That's me. And my throat's feeling a bit sore now after reading those few stories there. Much better. Oh. Up, motherfucker.
He defended him, and now he claims to know nothing.
It's official. AI is making people dumber, and the science now backs it up. At MIT, researchers recently ran a study where students were split into 3 groups, one using ChatGPT, one using...
Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson because he owes his job to him. Yep. He appointed...
That was weird. Right, let's try that again. Go.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson because he owes his job to him. Yep. He appointed him, he defended him, and now he claims to know nothing. He is gaslighting the nation. Yep. So let's call this out for what it is. The Prime Minister is a barefaced liar, and if you had any decency left...
No, order, sit and leave. Leave now. I'll name you otherwise. I'd go now if I were you. Leave. I'm not... Leave. I've no name. I've given the option to leave. I'd leave if I were you very quickly. Move before I read it and give me one option. Right, give me that. You have no duties. It's my duty to carry out and control this house. One chance. Do you want to leave now or not?
My constituents to tell the truth, and the Prime Minister is a liar.
I named Zara Sultana. Minister, I beg to move that the name, the said member, be suspended from the House. The question is that Zara Sultana be named and leave this House. All those in favour? Aye. Leave. I'm sorry you've done this. I really am.
The problem the Prime Minister's got is no one believes him. The public don't believe him. The MPs on this side of the House don't believe him. His own gullible backbenchers don't believe him. So does the Prime Minister agree with me? He's been lying.
Sorry, we don't use those words, and I'm sure the members withdrawn it.
Mr. Speaker, I have the greatest respect for you and your office, but I will not withdraw. That man couldn't lie straight in bed.
Order. Mr. Anderson, you'll have to leave.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson because he owes his job to him.
Yep.
He is a liar. He is a liar. Yeah, booted for telling the truth. Here we go. Oh.
Grilled by MPs, and rightfully so. However, it was this from Diane Abbott that stole the show.
Dame Diane Abbott. Sorry, Diane
Yeah.
Abbott.
The Prime Minister has gone on at considerable length about process and procedure. But ordinary people don't really care about process and procedure. They want transparency, and they want to know that they can have confidence in the words of elected politicians, like all of us in this chamber. On the question of Peter Mandelson, it was in the 90s that Peter Mandelson had to resign from the cabinet for the first time because of his dealings with the millionaire Geoffrey Robinson.
Fired. Sorry, Diane. Well, she was there. She was on the back benches, obviously. He was fired. I will keep on correcting them until one of them says it correctly. He was fired. Twice. Should never have been... See, McSchemie, it's his fault. He was probably the one pressuring Keir. You have to hire my boss. He has to get...
It was a few years later.
Be sure your sins will find
he
you
had
out.
to resign for the cabinet for the second time because of his relationships with the billionaire Hinduja family. Peter Mandelson has a history. Peter Mandelson has a history. And what this House wants to know is why, knowing Peter Mandelson's history, going back now 30 years, and given what has been known, it's one thing to say, as he insists on saying, nobody told me. Nobody told me anything. Nobody told me. The question is, why didn't the Prime Minister ask?
Mr. Speaker, in relation to her question, let me be clear. I should not have appointed Peter Mandelson. As soon as the further revelations came to light, I asked the Cabinet Secretary to review the process so I could be assured about the process. He wrote to me on the 16th of September, setting out the conclusions of that review and assuring me the process had been followed properly.
What a brilliant question. Curtis, I just wanted to get your reaction to Diane's questions.
Ooh, I tell you what. Oh, she absolutely annihilated him, didn't she? Really good stuff. And do you know what? I felt like this was something that was very cathartic. You know, Diane Abbott has been treated appallingly by the Labour Party, especially by Keir Starmer, like disgustingly. And usually when, very few left-wing MPs are left, right? But when they say something against Keir Starmer, Keir comes up with a snarky jibe. Doesn't seem very snarky there, does he? Because Diane Abbott perfectly explained to Keir Starmer, which, in fact, what we all knew, is that you can't play naive with Peter Mandelson, because it's not like that Peter Mandelson had a clean record and then until recently he was dodgy. We all knew how dodgy Peter Mandelson was. I mean, Diane Abbott perfectly explained there how Mandelson was sacked repeatedly in the shadow cabinet. He's had dodgy dealings with extremely rich people. When it comes to his link to Jeffrey Epstein, that was apparent for years. Years. There's images of them together way before Keir Starmer even joined the Labour Party, let alone become an MP. We knew that. Yet Keir Starmer still pushed for him to have a role and made him ambassador of the US. So even if we accept he had no idea,
Correct.
his hands are not clean. He still chose to bring in an extremely politically toxic person. Not just politically toxic, just generally toxic. I mean, his nickname was the Dark Prince, or Prince of Darkness, whatever, And you do not bring in someone who's friends with a paedophile. Like, I can't believe that we're saying this, but rule number one in politics is there's certain scandals, things you can probably get away with. Paedophilia isn't one of them. And if you're going to appoint someone who was like even vaguely close to the world's most notorious paedophile, absolutely do not have him in Parliament or have him in your government. Yet he'd done that anyway. Now, of course, he wants us to believe that he had no idea. Now, look, we've heard contradicting evidence. No. We've heard evidence or at least sources from people saying that the Foreign Office worked on Keir Starmer's orders or understanding, that Peter Mandelson was definitely wanted. And then, of course, we heard the official narrative, which is that Keir Starmer and David Lammy had no idea. I still find it incredibly hard to believe that a low-level civil servant would make that kind of decision, especially about Peter Mandelson, and not tell Keir Starmer. That's absolutely crazy. But I think what Diana says at the end, which is great, which is that it's the fact that you didn't ask the question. Why? First, let alone why did you want me in the first place, as I just laid out. But, just why are you not questioning this man? Why are you not saying, why is Morgan McSweeney pushing this guy on me? It's absolutely crazy. Of course, yes, he was grilled at PMQs. And by the way, he said he was going to have his angry eyes on today. He's going to be really furious. He still looks completely flat. I mean, it is wild to me that this man is still Prime Minister. I don't know how he hasn't gone yet. And he vows to stay until the next election. He's going to get absolutely destroyed in May. And to be honest, there's no replacement. I've always said that Wes Street was the one who tried to be his replacement, but he obviously had issues with Peter Mandelson. He had to bring out his messages, his private messages with Mandelson, right? And I think that's kind of sort of pushed him by the wayside. But also the fact that he only won a seat by 500 votes against Liam Mohammed, which, by the way, I hope Liam Mohammed runs again and fucking eviscerates Wes Street, because I absolutely despise that man. But yeah, there's no other replacement. But I think if Keir Starmer doesn't go for this, he can literally do anything, can't he? And he'll still be protected.
It's Ollie Robbins' birthday today.
Happy birthday,
Ollie.
Birthday, Ollie Robbins.
What a shite week this past.
Okay, so Keir Starmer is going to be in front of MPs today. He's going to be questioned about this. Also, tomorrow there's going to be even more introspection. All I've heard from various, Labour backbenchers over the weekend, I've had multiple texts of it's time for him to go, Keir Starmer to go. This is a really, really egregious, in my opinion, breach of... Well, okay, let me just... Should we contextualise the story a little bit?
Yeah, so comrades will remember that weeks and weeks and weeks ago, Peter Mandelson was found to have done lots of naughty things when he was business secretary, and it turned out that everyone was asking, well, why didn't the security services find this out? And Keir Starmer, well, they did their job. They didn't find anything. Fast forward to last week. Turns out they did do their job, and the developed vetting, which is the highest level of vetting in the UK government, he had failed that. which is the vetting that you need to be ambassador. And
of
what
course
the government line is at the
they
moment
already
is
knew.
that there is only one person that knew this, and that was Ollie Robbins, the now former permanent secretary at the Foreign Office, who's the most senior civil servant, and he didn't tell anyone ever at all. And when Keir Starmer said he passed vetting and we didn't find anything, he was actually misleading Parliament, apparently unknowingly.
And the discrepancy...
Misleading. Lying. Morally corrupt serial liar.
is that from the opinion of a civil servant, the appointment had already been made. The job of a civil servant is to carry out the work of the government of the day, right? So the sort of the learned view is that Ollie Robbins didn't do anything wrong because he simply facilitated an appointment that had already been made. And then the revisionist line that is being delivered this morning by the unfortunate minister who had to take the broadcast round is that, yep, actually it was really rushed and he should never have been appointed before the vetting process could have taken place.
Well, that's the words of Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, who was actually big Blairite and not even, like, I think he's technically a political appointee, but he's not like, an MP that's going to lose his seat. He's got no skin in the game either way. Weirdly weird.
Developed vetting is one of the highest, one of the most stringent forms that anyone can go through. So, of course they fucking knew. Even if you didn't know the most recent things surrounding Mandelson, the entire fucking country knew what it was like in the past. Fired twice, remember? It's fucking ridiculous.
Weirdly rushed.
So I think there are a couple of points on this where David Maddox, the political editor of The Independent, texts Tim Allen, who was the then Director of Communications, about 7 months ago, saying, I've got sources in the FCDO that say he did not pass vetting.
That's Foreign Office.
Are you sure that he definitely did? And Tim Allen said, yep, I've checked. He did. So you would think if David Maddox, a reasonably well-respected journalist, senior member of the lobby, political editor of a newspaper, if a political editor is coming to you, the Director of Comms in Number 10, going, are you super sure about this guy who has historically been a bit of a problem? You just give the FCDO a quick call and go, are we definitely sure? Or at least someone would have been made aware that there was a media request about this. Seemingly not.
Well, there's also tandem with that point, because that is a very important one. But there is also a media monitoring service that is detailed, to say the least, right? You have appointments. People's job, that there are people with jobs, which is to simply listen to every single media outlet, read every single media outlet, and compile a report for the government of the day, right? For them to have a look at. There is no way on God's green earth that this did not pass the desk of the people making the decisions, all right? If I knew about it, if Andy knew about it, if Charlie, who's just arrived, knew about it, they knew about it, okay? It definitely had been flagged. But it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think we can kind of do like a revisionist theory of history here of why were they so gung-ho? Why did they have to make this appointment no matter hell or high water? What was the obsession with Peter Mandelson?
I mean, there's also isn't it that the American intelligence services were concerned about the appointment as well because of Global Council's ties with Chinese military contractors? So they could have, could the Americans not have turned around and said, we need you to reevaluate your appointment to the ambassador because we don't think it's very safe for him to be involved in any conversations between these two countries diplomatically because of his business ties, right?
Rejoice, comrades, journeying Jordan. Hi, Jordan. Welcome in.
But it was the thing at the time as well, wasn't it, that the tongue-in-cheek theory that, well, he was a mate of Epstein's, Trump is a mate of Epstein's, maybe it's a good idea to have him in Washington.
But this was the most ridiculous theory that I think was almost done. Again, I think that was revisionist. And you know something, to me that was a bit of Westminster brain thinking, because I do remember sitting on a panel and someone pulled that line out and I was like, When I read that on Twitter this morning, I thought that was one of the most ridiculous arguments I've ever heard. I cannot believe it's now being repeated on a broadcast.
I think what actually happened was the State Department, which is like their equivalent of the Home Office and the Foreign Office, it's kind of merged, I suppose.
You would more than likely be better than Mandelson, Omaha, you know.
Yeah.
I should be
We're really quite
ambassador.
concerned. And then actually, apparently, he went over, sweet talked them, and they were like, oh, fuck, this guy's actually great, and just let it through. So I don't think it's so much they're both powerful. That team.
Silver tongue.
No, but that is the line that was being delivered.
Well, I think it might actually be the case, as ridiculous as it is. I think.
No, but even if you thought that behind closed doors, that's not a sell to give to the public.
No, it doesn't.
Do you know what I mean?
No, he went over
They were
and
both-
introduced them. Yeah. Like, these problems
Both of them were friends with a paedophile, so obviously it makes sense to put him in.
But also, like, what do we think of the defence in the first place? It rings a little bit like ambush by cake, you know? The whole thing of people don't tell me anything. Me, the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, did not know anything of the vetting being failed. Didn't know that he was rushed through anyway. Didn't know that, like... What are you doing if nobody tells you anything? Like, what is his job as Prime Minister if nobody...
Well, okay, I understand sort of the converse side of that is that the vetting process is that you will be extraordinarily honest and transparent with the people who are vetting you, because the details of what you have passed on are not passed to the wider circle, right? There's a select group of people who hear your innermost secrets, and that's why you can have this sort of inner sanctum of trust, because it's not going to leave the room.
But chronologically, the vetting happened after the appointment.
No, of course, but let me just follow this train of thought that's being delivered at the moment, because I just want to point out the farce in what Keir Starmer is arguing, which is that Ollie Robbins did not pass over the correct information around Peter Mandelson. He can't pass on the information about Peter Mandelson. And the second reason of why that argument is defunct is that the problems that have been raised subsequently were in the public domain at the time. So it's like, okay, Ollie Robbins didn't tell me, well, okay, he wasn't allowed to, so let's botch that argument. Second argument, you knew about it because it was in the public domain.
My point of the chronology of it is, even if they weren't allowed to share the details of the vetting, he was appointed already, and Starmer was already getting stink for appointing him. Because he was getting stink because everyone knew that there was a stink around Mandelson in the first place. He goes to Washington. There's then the vetting process. He fails the vetting process. Does Starmer not think, or do anyone in number 10 think, maybe we should follow up with what the results of the vetting process were? And if at that point they turn around and say, no, he passed, which is then a lie, then they probably have more of a leg to stand on that. Actually, he was lied to. But what their argument is that he wasn't told either way, whether he passed or failed the vetting process. At that point, it just seems like he's at the top and everyone's whispering below him and not telling him anything.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the argument would stand up if it was a civil service or a diplomatic appointment someone who had gone through the whole kind of charged affairs, gone through up through the civil service and the diplomatic service. But I think because it was a political appointment and such a high profile one, you can't really make the excuse of, oh, well, it wasn't me, Gov, I don't know, Gov. Like, I don't think it really, if it was, not to disrespect, but just some civil servant,
but just
it would be radically different.
But for covering his own arse, like he'd already known that people were unsure about the decision, and he was losing a lot of political capital over the decision in the first place. So just to cover your bases,
but think about the sort of the project that they did around Westminster as well, because the briefing was extraordinary. The briefing really was convincing otherwise sensible journalists that this was political genius. I mean, if you look back at the time about the sort of editorials that were being written.
Hodges was cunning, clever, exactly why he should be our man in Washington.
Yeah.
This
was repeated across the board. You had MPs who should have known better saying that. You had political journalists arguing that case. All the while, I actually genuinely remember sitting on one panel being like, Are we joking? The man was I promise you, I'm not being revisionist here. I'm not saying I knew all along. I've got into trouble repeatedly for criticising Peter Mandelson over the last 2 years. I honestly thought I was going mad.
Yeah.
The man is called the Prince of Darkness. Yeah. Okay? What?
The best guy for the job in Washington.
Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like, the grown-ups are back in the room. What are you talking about?
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
People,
But
I
it's
just think people just say things, man. People just say things. Like, it's just...
But it's like it's not just one thing, you know. Like we've been here waxing lyrical for the last couple of months, in particular about the Epstein files. But he didn't fail the vetting process because of the Epstein files. It was because of his links to China and Russia. Like, these are other things that you should not be putting him in Washington for. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I love it.
Still on PT.
Please, I was about to segue right back in. So.
I think fucking insane that he went and did a press call. Did you see this? He went walking with his dogs around Regent Park. Was it Saturday or one of either Friday or Saturday?
There were some beautiful photographs.
Class photos. I'd put it on the mantelpiece, truly. But like, sort of makes it look like
or a
maybe Oh, fuck! Genius. Oh, that was good.
My Peter Mandelpiece.
Peter Mandelpiece. Fuck.
Carry on,
That's
Andy.
bars. Sorry. Sort of maybe looks like he leaked this whole vetting thing and then, took a strategic stroll where he knew all the photographers would be.
Well, look, we wouldn't be able to say that, would we? With confidence.
No, of course I would.
Just speculation. Pure speculation, that is.
The famous spin doctor and Prince of Darkness, who was never...
I just love the idea of this, like, him strolling into, like,
That's
the
a
FCDO,
possibility.
investigation. What was it called? Sorry, the vetting process.
Yeah.
I love the idea of him walking.
Distinct possibility there, Ella. That's quite... I never thought of that. Get him the fuck out of the country. Yeah.
Into the vetting room with his Huawei phone and his pro-Putin t-shirt on and his picture of him and Jeffrey Epstein flying on a little flag and going, so you're going to make me the ambassador or what?
So which one of these is the failure for, or what?
Let me just run through a couple of things here. So Keir Starmer, as we said, he's going to be in the House of Commons later today. So far, he has hemorrhaged 2 chief of staffs, 4 communication chiefs, 3 cabinet secretaries, and 17 members of cabinet, and a partridge in a pear tree, and a Mandelson on the mantelpiece.
How many more cabinet members do you reckon he's going to lose in the next week?
We had one anonymous senior cabinet minister briefing to...
Called him an arsehole?
I don't think they said that.
I read that this morning. Sorry, maybe not a cabinet member, but certainly a senior Labour figure had called the Prime Minister an arsehole.
Is it Meta Pandelson, the senior Labour figure? Some senior government minister was briefing over the weekend to The Guardian and other Times saying, it's over. It's so over.
One cabinet minister, or one minister who attends cabinet, who likes to use disappearing messages. I got a LOL. That was quite good.
It's a good job.
I like waking up to an LOL. I always wake up, right, like in the middle of the night, kind of like 4 or 5-ish. And that's always a really good time to check your phone because it's before they've come to their senses and deleted the messages.
Yeah.
The other interesting piece of information, so I was talking to one MP on Friday, sort of pushing on, what's going to happen here? Are you going to, is this going to dislodge Keir Starmer? What does this mean? What ramifications are there? And what they were saying to me was like, he still has the trust of the PLP. And it's at what point does he lose the PLP? And what can he do to contain any of the upset? So this is what I was talking to you about on Thursday evening, where there was some suggestion that Lou Hay, who is obviously the former Transport Secretary, who was sacked for losing her phone a few years ago or something like that.
That was exactly what it was, but
had her phone stolen, reported it stolen. Okay, she was sacked for fraud. All right, look.
Insurance fraud, I believe it was. Yeah.
Anyway, There was some suggestion that she could be brought back into cabinet as a way to bring back in the soft left, to appease the soft left. So there's a concern that there could be sort of ruminating upset amongst the PLP. And the question is, after the May local elections, if Keir Starmer has hemorrhaged Wales, he has hemorrhaged Scotland, and he's lost councils up and down England, what's going to happen? Is he going to bring back in the soft left to sort of shore up his security as Prime Minister, or is he going to say, do you know what, I actually can't quite cope with the waves anymore?
It is an interesting problem that he has, isn't it? Because you do also add into that the rise of the Green Party, that you would think at some point you are going to have to reckon with the fact that you are bleeding votes to the left of British society, and now you're having to compromise with the left of your party, you know?
So I think the Green thing is what might fuck him, bluntly, because you'll have a huge group of MPs coming back from quite a long break because Parliament's prorogued right after the May elections, and they'll be coming back and sitting in the tea rooms and in the pubs and all the rest of it and going, fuck, we're fucked to the Greens. Well, you got fucked to the Greens. Well, I got fucked by Reform, and I'm losing to them and them and them. And I think the pure scale of the opposition to Labour will collapse quite quickly.
I met a couple of canvassers on Friday, and one thing that really took me aback was the sort of the line that they're going on still, having failed in Gorton and Denton with this line, is that you've got to vote Labour because if you vote Green, you're paving the way for reform. Whoever is briefing them to do this is not working.
Incorrect.
Okay? And it's been proven that in the last by-election, it categorically doesn't work.
Voting for Labour is paving the way to reform. Yeah.
But it's absolutely, it was extraordinary because they were saying it to me with sort of real vigour. They were like, obviously if people vote Green, they're going to get a Reform candidate. And I was like, guys, what's going on here? And the sort of the lines as well that were being used on the doorstep about Nigel Farage, about him wanting to privatise the NHS. Okay, it's a good attack line, don't get me wrong. It's their only attack line.
Yeah.
They honestly don't have anything else. And, all of the stories, even about...
The Tice stories at the moment, they could be doing a lot more on, but they're not.
They could. There was one MP, actually, who gave it a go on GB News the other day, but the problem is that the scale of... the reason why it's not working is because if you're being asked very valid questions around the appointment of Peter Mandelson, and you come back with, well, have you seen Tice's tax filings? It seems like a whataboutery, doesn't it? It doesn't quite work.
He did it very, on his high horse as well. Yeah. He did it I don't know if you've seen this breaking news. I don't know if GB News will be covering this, but there's breaking news. But, the reform... it's like,
You appointed a guy that was the...
It's like right message, wrong messenger.
But you could also, I think if the one thing that actually, Starmer's administration has proved time and time over and over again is they can't ever accept responsibility for an issue, park it and move on. They have to let it bleed and let it run for about 3 weeks until it just fizzles out and the public gets bored of it. And over again, you say, why don't you think to yourself, why can't you learn the lessons of time gone by? Why can you not deal with this, package it, and then move on? But the fact that they just sort of have this haemophilia with their political messaging, which is that they just let it bleed on and on. This Peter Mandelson story, right? Starmer knew about it last Tuesday, okay? He could have hypothetically, Wednesday, he could have requested a common statement straight after Prime Minister's questions, and he could have said, there has been new information brought to light. This is how I am dealing with it. I am the man in charge. I am sensible. Instead, he lets it rot. He lets it begin to sort of get smelly behind the cupboard. And by Thursday, you've got a political journalist who outs him. So he's now behind the curve of that story. Now, we're on Monday. It's still headline news, still front page news. And we've got Starmer today. We've got Ollie Robbins tomorrow. This is now going to bleed on for the rest of the week. So instead of solving an issue within 24 hours, like a proper haemophiliac, he is allowed it to bleed on, and it will now until probably the end of this week. What's the point?
I wonder, do they think dragging it on like this is a way of preventing any immediate recourse for the government? You know, if Stammer was to turn around and say, it's my fault, well, that is effectively what Douglas Alexander was saying this morning, isn't it? That, well, he is taking responsibility, but he didn't know and nobody told him, so it's not really his fault.
But he just...
That isn't...
You're the Prime Minister, fucking ask. And anyways, a liar, he fucking knew. I think I might ask her if she's incoming or if she was incorrect when she told me the NHS doesn't break the law at next party meeting. Pending question and neither is acceptable. Can't lie and say she didn't say I was recorded the meeting. Memoir. Nice one, Eldon.
There's too many qualifiers.
It doesn't land.
Yeah, you should be saying, it's my fault, this happened, this is what I'm doing, as you said.
He needs to limp on for another week and a half, and then Parliament's prorogued. It's literally...
But it's been happening.
He just
like
needs
that
to get
this whole
through.
time.
Well, no,
It's
because
been
then
happening
Parliament's
this whole
prorogued,
time.
then the King's Speech, which sets up the legislative agenda for the year, and no one will make a move then. He just needs to limp on. Just for in his mind, he just needs to get through this PMQs and maybe next week's, and that's
When it came to the Mandelson files, a month and a half ago, it was the same thing. It
Well, he's
was
limped
2
on.
weeks until... Yeah, but for how long? You've only got 2 legs.
Yeah.
You know, he's
dragging it.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I should not have appointed Peter Mandelson. I take responsibility for that decision, and I apologise again to the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who were clearly failed by my decision. Mr. Speaker, last Tuesday evening, the 14th of April, I found out for the first time that on the 29th of January 2025, before Peter Mandelson took up his position as
Resign,
ambassador,
you bastard.
the Foreign Office officials granted him developed vetting clearance against the specific recommendation of the United Kingdom Security Vetting that developed vetting clearance should be denied. Not only that, the Foreign Office officials who made that decision did not pass this information to me, to the Foreign Secretary, to her predecessor, the Deputy Prime Minister, to any other minister.
Just like Trevor Phillips said yesterday to Liz Kendall, they don't need to say, they have to keep it separate. There's a barrier, essentially. They're not meant to say anything about it. So no.
Or even to the former Cabinet Secretary, Sir Chris Wormold. I found this staggering, and therefore last Tuesday I immediately instructed officials in Downing Street and the Cabinet Office to urgently establish the facts on my authority. I wanted to know who made the decision, on what basis, who knew, and Mr. Speaker, I wanted that information for the precise and explicit purpose of updating this House.
Yeah.
Because this is information I should have had a long time ago. And it is information that this House should have had a long time ago. It is information that I and the House had the right to know. Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government. That is not how the vast
Thank you,
majority of
Virginia.
people in this
That was
country
you.
expect politics, government or accountability to work.
Senator David, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's 2022 all over again. Back then, when he stood on this side of the House, it was Boris Johnson who was accused of misleading Parliament and scapegoating senior officials. The then Leader of the Opposition couldn't have been clearer. The public need to know, he said, that not all politicians are the same, that not all politicians put themselves above their country, and that honesty, integrity and accountability matter. So he promised change, Mr. Speaker. He promised to break the cycle and stop the chaos. And he promised a government with, and I quote, more focus on long-term strategy, not the short-term distractions that can animate Westminster. I'm afraid the fact that he even had to make the statement today shows how badly he has failed, how badly he has let down the millions of people across our country who are so desperate for change. He blames his officials. He says he had no idea. He gives every impression of a Prime Minister in office, but not in power. The facts remain, even on his own account.
I missed that. Got it now.
The Prime Minister appointed Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United States, even after he had been warned about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The Prime Minister announced the appointment before Mandelson had been vetted, despite the clear risk to national security of putting someone unsuitable in that role. And one of his top officials, just 3 weeks into the job, clearly believed the Prime Minister wanted Mandelson to be appointed regardless of what the vetting process turned up. And the Prime Minister has relied on the vetting process to defend his decisions. So why did he ask so few questions personally about the vetting process itself? We all know the truth, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister knew that appointing Mandelson was an enormous risk. He decided.
Try to imagine, yeah. It would have been fucking awesome. Yeah, can you imagine it? The beast from Bolsover, he would have ripped right into him. Dodgy Keir. I still love that one. Dodgy Dave. Fucking love it. Did he got booted for that, didn't he? Oh, just
it was a risk
Dennis
worth taking.
Skinner back in that with all
A
this
catastrophic error of judgment. And now that it's blown up in his face, the only decent thing to do is to take responsibility. Back in 2022,
resign.
the Prime Minister rightly accused Boris Johnson of expecting others to take the blame while he clung on. That was not acceptable then, and it's not acceptable now. So I hope the Prime Minister can at least tell the House this, and we'll be listening very carefully to his answer. Was he given advice by Simon Case, the then Cabinet Secretary, that the necessary security clearances should be acquired before he confirmed his choice for US Ambassador? And did he follow that advice? Yes or no? Mr. Speaker, after the years of chaos under the Conservatives, we needed a government focused on the interests of the people, the cost of living crisis, the health and care crisis, our national security. We needed a government of honesty, integrity and accountability. So will the Prime Minister finally accept that the only way he can help to deliver that is to resign?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker,
I
set out in my statement the full facts. And in September, when the Bloomberg emails came to light, I asked the Cabinet to review the process, then Cabinet Secretary to review the process. He told me the process was as it should have been. And as soon as the information about security vetting came to light last Tuesday, I asked for the facts to be established so I could update Parliament. He asks me about the announcement before developed vetting. He's heard the evidence that I've given to the House from the former Cabinet Secretary and from the former Permanent Secretary. In relation to the advice from Simon Case, Mr. Speaker, when I asked the former Cabinet Secretary to review the process after September 25, he specifically addressed whether the process had been followed by referencing the Simon Case letter and assured me that the process was the right process to have followed. So in answer to his question, that was specifically looked at by Sir Chris Wormold in the review that was conducted in September of last year.
Diane Abbott. Sorry, Diane Abbott.
The Prime Minister has gone on at considerable length about process and
yes,
procedure.
quite funny that, isn't it?
But ordinary people don't really care about process and procedure. They want transparency, and they want to know that they can have confidence in the words of elected politicians, like all of us in this chamber. On the question of Peter Mandelson, it was in the 90s that Peter Mandelson had to resign from the Cabinet for the first time because of his dealings with the millionaire Geoffrey Robinson. It was a few years later he had to resign from the Cabinet for the second time because of his relationships with the billionaire Hinduja family. Peter Mandelson has a history. Peter Mandelson has a history, and what this House...
I speculate here about how this can play out. Is it the end of history? Yeah. I don't know why he's been fired twice, for fuck's sake. He's called the Prince of Darkness. He can't be trusted. He didn't pass the vetting. It's going to have to take the Cabinet to be talking to him in the background that we can't see, obviously. Either that or a vote of no confidence and the House votes for it. But that would... Either that or him stepping down, which I don't see happening. Now, if they get a brutal enough kicking on the 7th of May, that might be the impetus for him to fuck off. They're circling the wagons around him, essentially. You have to remember that Mandelson helped pick quite a lot of those backbenchers, and a lot of their majorities are crap. We have to protect them. The loyalty aspect of this is kind of the one that's going to make it difficult to... He might just dig his heels in and not bother. And at that point, the country just start... no, we're not doing it. They're literally calling for him to resign. They can't be running the country with this sort of scrutiny on him. He has to step down. He has to. He's completely untenable, at least in my opinion.
Wants to know is why, knowing Peter Mandelson's history, going back now 30 years, and given what has been known, it's one thing to say, as he insists on saying, nobody told me. Nobody told me anything. Nobody told me. The question is, why didn't the Prime Minister ask?
Mr. Speaker, in relation to her question, let me be clear. I should not have appointed Peter Mandelson. As soon as the further revelations came to light, I asked the Cabinet Secretary to review the process so I could be assured about the process. He wrote to me on the 16th of September, setting out the conclusions of that review and assuring me the process had been followed properly.
Can I say that on this side of the House at least, to my honourable friend,
John.
many will appreciate his apology today. But many of us will remain bewildered still why that appointment took place despite the warnings that many of us gave him. And isn't the reality this, that when he sought to realise his ambition to become leader of the Labour Party, with very little base within the party, he became dependent on McSweeney and Mandelson and Labour together to organise, fund his election. And that when he became Prime Minister, the reward for McSweeney was control of Number 10, and for Mandelson, the highest diplomatic office. And the message, the unspoken message to civil servants was, what Mandelson wants, Mandelson gets. This has damaged the party that I've been a member of for 50 years. I urge him to take steps to clear this toxic culture out of our party and take the first step by having an independent inquiry into Labour together.
That's how Prime Minister. Yeah, correct,
Mr. Speaker, can I just deal with what's at the heart of that question in relation to an unspoken message to civil servants? I don't accept that, Mr. Speaker. It is simply not good enough on a question of national security where clearance, the recommendation is clearance be denied, for anyone, particularly senior civil servants, to do anything other than provide me with the relevant information, and that is what should have happened in this case.
Sir David Debs.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has twice rebuffed first the Leader of the Opposition, then the Leader of the Liberal Democrats, when they said that the then Cabinet Secretary's advice to the Prime Minister was to get the clearance before the announcement. So I'm going to read in one sentence from a document entitled Options for HMA Washington from the Cabinet Secretary of the day to him personally. It says, if this is the route you wish to take, you should give us the name of the person you would like to appoint, and we will develop a plan for them to acquire the necessary security clearances and do due diligence on any potential conflicts of interest or other issues of which you should be aware before confirming your choice. The House doesn't want to hear about what Mr. Wormholt said a year later. That was the advice then. Why didn't he follow it?
Mr. Speaker, he reads out the passage from Mr. Case's advice. The process that was followed was what I understood to be the usual process. In other words, the appointment was subject to the security vetting. It is why, when Sir Chris Wormholt looked at it in September, he addressed the question by reference back to Simon Case's letter, because I wanted to know the process that had been followed was the right process, and that is what Sir Chris Wormholt looked at. He looked at it expressly by reference to the Simon Case letter that has just been read out, and assured me that the right process was followed when he reviewed it.
Mr. Speaker, anybody who knows the Prime Minister will know full well that he would never, ever deliberately mislead this House. But the reality is this, Mr. Speaker, ex post facto
I don't like agreeing with a Tory.
Vetting is utterly pointless when the appointment is political. And the trouble, Mr. Speaker, that we all face is that trust in the Prime Minister and in politics
it says
is diminishing.
No, he's one of the ones that's lost the
sorry
work from independent.
Continues. So in the 17 days we have leading to those very important elections, never mind question, those very important elections, what does the Prime Minister propose to do to win back the trust of the country?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in relation to his point about vetting in relation to political appointments, I don't agree, but I do agree that the due diligence for direct ministerial appointments should be the same as for any other appointments. It clearly wasn't, and that's why in September I ordered that it be changed in order to make sure it is the same process, whether it's a direct ministerial appointment or any other appointment. In relation to the country, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we remain focused on the cost of living and on dealing with the war on two fronts that we face in this country, and I intend to do that.
Stephen Flynn.
Yes!
The harshest and most important truth in this entire process is that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom chose to proactively ignore the victims of Jeffrey Epstein when he made the political choice to put Peter Mandelson in as the UK's most senior diplomat in the United States of America, despite knowing that he had maintained a friendship with Jeffrey Epstein himself. We have since seen Peter Mandelson be investigated for potential misconduct in public office, and we, of course, now learn through the media that Peter Mandelson had failed his security vetting. The Prime Minister blames all of this, all of it, on the judgment of others. But I'm interested in his judgment. Does he believe himself to be gullible, incompetent, or both?
Yeah. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank him for his question. I've laid out the relevant facts. It is absolutely clear that nobody is suggesting that this information was made available to me. It clearly wasn't made available. It should have been made available, and I would not have made the appointment had it been made available. That is why I set out the facts in some considerable detail to the House, with relevant quotes from all the relevant players in this.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister is being candid about some of the...
Rachel Musk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the beginning of February, in February 2026, we learnt that Peter Mandelson had shared highly sensitive government information with Jeffrey Epstein from the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. At that juncture, if I was in his shoes, I would have been forensic in recognising a security risk and wanting detailed answers.
Yeah, I think it is edited.
What's not adding up for me is why we are now in mid-April before we get this information, and why the Prime Minister didn't drill down to ensure that we had the security information, which clearly we learnt that Peter Mandelson had breached.
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it was at that point that I did ask, order the review of the security vetting, because I was concerned that it had failed. In fact, because of information I wasn't given, it hadn't failed. It had actually given the recommendation that clearance should be denied. The fact that when I ordered a review of UKSV, senior officials in the Foreign Office didn't at that stage, if at no other stage, bring to my attention the information they hadn't told me, is astonishing, because I was ordering a review of the process, which I...
You can ask them, you fucking moron. And I'll keep on saying this. He's been fired twice. You shouldn't have appointed him ambassador to the States. Proven track record. Should have just left the one that was already in there. She was liked, even by the Trump administration, for fuck's sake. Correct, Elron, yeah. This is bullshit. Sir Ollie arrived in post 17 days after Yum Yum failed vetting. Yeah. Ollie Robbins was a sacrificial goat, essentially. He was probably pressured into stepping down. Yeah, he was appointed after Mandelson had failed the vetting, so nothing to do with him. Yeah. Oh, he should have asked. Yeah.
Was which looked as though it had failed, when in fact it had flagged the relevant concerns.
You're a champion.
There are 61 conflicts raging around the world. I've never known international diplomatic relationships be more fractured. FCDO is pushing through 40% cuts of aid and 25% cuts of staff, all under the watch of the Permanent Undersecretary. So can I ask the Prime Minister, what risk assessment was carried out before he was removed?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was dealing with a various issue. I asked my team to establish urgently the facts on Tuesday night. I spoke to the former Permanent Secretary on Thursday night. As a result of the information I had and the exchanges I had, I made it clear that I no longer had confidence in him.
Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The problem the Prime Minister's got is no one believes him. The public don't believe him. The MPs on this side of the House don't believe him. His own gullible backbenchers don't believe him. So does the Prime Minister agree with me? He's been lying.
Prime Minister, sorry, we don't use those words, and I'm sure the members withdrawn it.
Mr. Speaker, I have the greatest respect for you and your office, but I will not withdraw. That man couldn't lie straight in bed.
No, order. Mr. Anderson, you'll have to leave. Phil Brettle.
Speaker, when Sir Ollie Robbins came before the Foreign...
Neil Duncan Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today's statement may well be about process and procedure, but surely, Prime Minister, the real issue is why, when Peter Mandelson's reputation was already known, was he ever considered for such an important role?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've accepted that was my decision and I've apologised for it.
Ellie Charles, Dr. Ellie Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister says it's staggering and unforgivable that he wasn't told about the vetting. But what's really staggering and unforgivable is that he appointed Peter Mandelson before the vetting, that he appointed Peter Mandelson knowing about his friendship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. What's unforgivable is that the Prime Minister was more concerned with pandering to Donald Trump than with standing with the victims and survivors. Now, the Prime Minister has not accepted a simple sorry from his civil servant. He thinks that's inadequate. The country thinks a simple sorry is inadequate from him. Yeah. Will he take personal responsibility for his staggering and unforgivable errors of judgment and resign?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've set out to the House the facts of what happened in this particular case, and I am staggered, and I find it unbelievable I wasn't given the information I should have been given.
Richard Bergen.
Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister made the political decision to appoint Peter Mandelson, but central to that decision, along with other policy and political position decisions, would have been the Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. So can the Prime Minister confirm to the House whether Morgan McSweeney passed all his security vetting, and confirm whether or not Morgan McSweeney ever handled documents for which he had anything other than the appropriate level of clearance?
Fucking good question. Nice one, Bergen. That is a damn good question. Did McSkeemy pass? Closest we've got to Corbyn, yeah. Was that Leeds East? That means he neighbours fucking Rachel. I think. That's a damn good question. Did McSkeemy pass the vetting?
All the appropriate and necessary developed vetting has taken place in number 10, and everybody has passed that. Everyone passed it.
Well, Francois.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh God, Francois.
If, as we've been assured, there was no law...
Oh. No.
Mr. President, what are you doing up there?
It's an extraordinary moment of liberation when you stop, think,
Do-do-do. Ah. Oh. Thank you.
I first came across Mandelson in the 1980s with Tony Benn, and he was brought in to do media for the Labour Party by Neil Kinnock after the 87 election, the idea being that Mandelson would be able to start the road down towards what Kinnock called New Realism, which was the precursor of New Labour, and Mandelson was the one to do it. Mandelson was very clever, very effective media operator in that he would have, obviously, sorry about this, because I'm in my eye,
he's a slimy bastard.
Have huge range of media contacts, and he would operate on the basis that Labour MPs all thought he knew everything about them and knew where all the bodies lay and everything else, and that he could do them in at any one time. He probably didn't and couldn't, but they all thought he could. So it was all essentially a thing about presence and image, and he was very good at cultivating that, both in the media about Kinnock and Labour, and later about Blair,
Thank you.
and so
Thank
on.
you,
And so it went on like that.
Thank you, Davinia. Thank you so much. No, I hadn't seen this. Thank you. Yeah, he was pissed off. Good. Because Jeremy didn't like him. He knew exactly what he was like. Remember, Corbyn had been in since 83, so he was there before Mandelson first appeared on the scene in the late 80s. Did it just come up in your feed? I wonder why. Is the algorithm noticing something? Slimy bastard indeed. Yeah.
Mandelson was this ever-present figure. Tony Benn thought he was... Tony told me, he said, I think Mandelson will not do any of us any good. He is not of the right ilk to do this. But Mandelson exploited his family relationship, grandfather being Herbert Morrison and so on. And then John Smith came along after Labour had lost the 92 election. John Smith did not like or trust Mandelson at all. And his role was diminished, if not removed altogether at that point by John. John Smith died only a year or so later, which was obviously very sad. And then I just remember that day that John died. Mandelson sort of peers around the place in the afternoon. John died in the morning, telling anyone that he could get hold of that Blair was the one. So he was plotting for Blair from the very beginning. And then development of New Labour. Now, at one level, you could say Mandelson was very effective in that he got a lot of media publicity for the party,
and
he got a lot of media interest in what the party was doing and saying. But the other side of it was all about kowtowing to Murdoch and that media power, and gaining the approval of the business establishment in the country. Shortly after Blair became leader, he was then sent off to Australia to be interviewed by the Murdoch Global Board. And that was, I thought, really peculiar.
Who was sent off there, sorry?
Blair.
Blair was sent off.
Went to Australia for a weekend.
Right.
To be interviewed by Murdoch.
It wouldn't seem that extraordinary that a man would want to cultivate relationships with
very suspicious.
newspaper moguls. It's a way to ingratiate yourself with the press.
Then.
It's a way to get your message out. So tell me,
possibly,
this is straight after Murdoch
with
with the Battle of Wapping. straight
something
after he had
shady
sacked
was
the
happening.
entire workforce of his paper, straight after been this terrible police activities in Wapping against those that were striking merely to keep their jobs. Nothing more than that. And it was as if nothing had happened. And so it's that sort of thing that made people very, very angry.
So what was he doing in the Labour Party then? Because this doesn't sound like the sort of the work of the Party of Workers, right? This doesn't sound like that sort of endeavour.
Well, what he was doing in the Labour Party was making sure the Labour Party stopped being the Party of Workers and started being the party of, in a sense, the kind of politics of the US Democrats, I suppose, is the nearest equivalent you can think of. Eric Heffer always said that. Eric Heffer and Tony Benn always said that what Mandelson and Blair were trying to do was turn the Labour Party into either a mirror of the SDP, which was then in decline, Social Democratic Party in Britain, or the US Democratic Party, or a bit of both, in the idea that you have a party which has a broad working class appeal, but essentially is a pro-business party, and if push comes to shove, then the business gets the shove.
And that's exactly what happened with the incoming Labour government, the current government that we have here.
Yeah.
This what you said a moment ago about this feeling that Mandelson always knew almost where the bodies were buried, that you'd have something on someone else. I mean, what does that really mean tangibly?
Well, they would. A lot of Labour MPs would be sort of nervous of Mandelson, and sometimes they were unhappy with the methods of using technology a great deal, which he was actually very good at, and the Labour Party needed to catch up with. So he wasn't wrong there. But there was when the Whip's office started saying every Labour MP had to get a pager. And you could get a pager, I assume, on parliamentary expenses.
Dr. David
I can't
Kelly
remember.
as well.
Probably you could. And then there was a joke went around saying somebody would turn on their pager in Parliament. It says, "Message from Mandelson: breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out." That's our message for today.
Gosh.
And it was only half a joke.
That sounds quite frightening, though, that he had this sort of. It almost seems an insatiable need for control.
Yeah, and that was what it was about. And if anyone said anything contrary to the narrative the party was pushing, and going forward into the 90s, before the 97 election, I questioned the idea of private finance in public services. This magical idea was brought up that we would encourage private finance into public services in order to develop hospitals, schools, and so on, roads even. And I questioned this and said, well, actually, this is undermining the principle of public ownership and public control, but secondly, it's going to cost a lot of money, and it will be much more expensive. And I was pretty roundly told that you're out of date, you're out of time, you don't understand the needs of public services and so on. And I just said, well, the post-war Labour government managed a huge amount of reconstruction using Public Works Loans Board. What's wrong with that now? That is essentially 60-year loans through the Treasury with fixed-rate Treasury bonds in return, which means that you know what your public sector costs are and you know what you're getting. And instead, we went down the road of this private finance, and I was told to shut up and stop going on the media about it, and I argued back and said, well, look, I just think since you're promoting these things which are not yet party policy, it's an issue of public debate. You don't have a leg to stand on in trying to prevent me speaking out about it, or anybody else for that matter. So there was this sort of atmosphere that was created, whereas previous leaders, John Smith particularly and others, didn't always agree. I didn't always agree with them. But you could take part in a public debate. I remember John Smith being leader. He came up with the Commission on Social Justice. I thought it was a conveyor belt towards reducing the role of the welfare state, individualising rather than collectivising, and so on, and said so. John said to me once, he said, I saw that you didn't agree with the Commission on Social Justice. I said, no, I don't. I've got a different view of things. And he said, okay, let's talk about it. So I went and spent an hour just talking to John about my concerns. He said, I think I understand what you're coming from. I'm not sure I totally agree, but thanks for your time. Well, that's the kind of leader you can work with. I don't know if you can think back, remember far enough back, 2019, I warned that the British government under Theresa May and Boris Johnson was involved in secret talks with the US on bringing in their healthcare companies and healthcare providers into Britain. I was told I was actually peddling a Russian plot, and it was all Russian propaganda. I mean, utter total nonsense. And they were just not prepared to face up to this. We now have Palantir involved. The NHS is busy pushing that every hospital bring in Palantir to manage its records and its databases. And now that database information, you think about the database, the NHS, everyone that's ever lived or died in this country since 1948, the records are there. It's gold dust for health research. It's gold dust for a big pharma. Should that be in private hands? Should that be a source of money for somebody to control it? And should we know where it's going and what sort of protections are in place? And then you look at the way in which Palantir has gained these contracts, one of which was gained during COVID, and the lobbying power of Peter Mandelson, when he was the owner of the company that lobbied for Palantir to go in as a preferred bidder, didn't face competition, was given the contract by the government. And then you ask the question, what was Sir Keir Starmer doing as Prime Minister whilst on a visit to Washington, going with Mandelson to the Palantir head office? What was that about? That meeting, we've asked, a number of MPs have, repeatedly, where's the minutes of that meeting? What civil service, what cabinet office official was present when the Prime Minister had these discussions? They say they can't find the records. Well, sorry, if the Prime Minister goes on a meeting with a private sector company in another country, I think we deserve to know. What was Mandelson doing involved in it? And did the Prime Minister know that Mandelson actually owned the company that had introduced Palantir into the whole orbit anyway? Starmer's got to answer that. He's refused to.
Why is he refusing to answer it then?
Well, suspicion
this
is...
sounds like Boris Johnson to me, Boris Johnson type behaviour. You know, the sort of the meetings that were not properly documented or correctly documented.
Yeah, that's right.
Surely that's beyond the realms of what is acceptable in office.
It's totally unacceptable. If you're in office and you're taking serious decisions with very large amounts of public money involved, and indeed in the case of Palantir, public safety involved because of our health records, the very least you expect it to be a formal meeting that is properly recorded and properly minuted.
What was it about Mandelson? He had a relationship with a financier that he shouldn't have had. Why did Keir Starmer look the other way? What is it about Mandelson that Starmer just felt he had to have him? Is it something, I think that a lot of the public are questioning, is it something dark, is it something covert, or is it just friends helping friends in politics?
It's friends having friends, and it's a sort of, people get dazzled by the aura of Mandelson, his connections, his apparent success, and the apparently very lavish lifestyle he's able to lead, and that comes from all the business interests and contacts that he's built up. And so Starmer now says he was lied to by Mandelson. Well, I don't know what went on in the meeting between them. Maybe one day we'll all be told. But if Starmer was not aware of Mandelson's activities and behaviour, then he should have been, and he should have been looking into it and should have been serious about it, because the damage it's done to Starmer, the damage it's done to his government is absolutely massive. And whilst he might have got away with a Parliamentary Labour Party meeting the other day, it's not over yet.
Oh, I've been going for 2.5 hours. I feel kind of worn out, oddly enough. And the fact I'm sitting here kind of shivering. Can't afford to put the heating on, unfortunately. I think there's a wash in the machine that we might need to put on, so the heating will be going on during the day anyway. So I might just... I will read us out. One of my favourite streamers is live, Red Rust 308. So let's go and say hi to Red, shall we? Informed an MI5 hitman where she would be. Ah! Shivering means go to bed. No, I had a nap earlier on in the day. I'm feeling fine. I just feel cold. Ugh. I've got another blanket over there that I'm about to grab. Let's go and say hi to Red, shall we? Come on. There we go. I will be back today, essentially, with Specs. We're going to be doing the debate for the Welsh party leaders, which is going to be fun. So come back on Tuesday. Come back later on today. 10ish, 10 PM UK time. I will be back. Small blue frog. I'll ping you, don't worry, Andy. Can I see who it is? Bye, Elron. Stay hydrated. Self-care is good care. Take your meds if you need to take any. Stay based. Free Palestine. And deal with Angela or Angie. Catch you later, Elron. Bye everyone.